Hi, everybody. I'm Ken Vandermark, and this is the Option series presented by Experimental Sound Studio every Monday night, usually at 8 p.m. Central Time. And tonight we have a special guest, Jasmine Mendoza, who works with movement, and it's an exciting addition of the series because part of the underlying theme of Option is the connection between different arts. And usually we focus on musicians, particularly experimental musicians and improvising musicians, but to have someone working with another art form and talk to them about their work, connection to improvisation in their work is fantastic. So welcome, Jasmine, and thanks for being part of this.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you all so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah. We're excited to have you here and to look at a bunch of new work. Jasmine's created 3 videos that will be presented tonight. All, as you mentioned earlier, all brand new stuff, right?
Yes, correct.
That's fantastic. So I'm super excited for that. Before we start getting into the conversation and the performances, I just very quickly like to mention that art is completely connected to life, and we're living in an unbelievably complicated time. And I encourage everybody watching and whoever's been part of checking out the stuff that Experimental Sound Studio does, anybody, anywhere, to try to contribute on whatever level they can to making the changes they want. And I would encourage people as part of that to really think about voting, because the election is not only about the presidential part, which is pretty crucial, but for example, in Cook County, there's all other things going on to vote on. It's not just the presidential election. So things like the Illinois to regulate assault weapons, things connected to the Illinois Supreme Court. All these things are part of what's going to be voted on this November. If you can vote ahead of time, do so. If you need to mail in your vote, do so. If you're going to show up on the 3rd of November, please do so. But please vote. And now I'd like to turn it over to Jasmine. And the first time I really registered seeing your work was in connection to a performance that took place at the Instigation Festival in New Orleans. In February of 2000, I'm pretty sure 18, because I don't think, no, in 2019. That's right, because I got my years screwed up. I wasn't there. And it was with Kim Alpert's. It was like in this outdoor environment in a yard, and Kim was screening visual materials. There was a live a string group performing, and you were the movement aspect of it in real time. And I was so knocked out by it, the discipline and rigor of your considerations in what you did that evening. And since that time, I've tried to follow as best I can the kinds of things you're doing and kind of tune in when I can to see what's going on. And maybe we could start with that, just because it's a reference point I'm more clear on. In that performance, you weren't the only movement person. There was somebody else too. There's 2 of you.
Yeah, it was Leah Cole actually was one of the other string performers, and her background is very expansive. She practices movement as well, so she jumped in at one point, which was really great. But I think that was around the time that you and I had actually met, because we were performing in New Orleans together. But yeah, I mean, my practice involves, improvisation is a huge part of my process. It's actually where my process begins. And so to be part of a huge improvisational festival has been very expansive for me as an improviser. But that performance specifically was, like Instigation every year is something very meaningful and to remember. I remember we put these like big rods we had to makeshift the structure that we were working with, because we moved it outside. but I've always been very intrigued by what Kim Alpert is bringing. And we have been collaborating her and I have been collaborating for like a couple of years now. So it was great to bring a version of what we've been working on to New Orleans. Yeah.
You could really feel that in the piece, that the way she was, because Kim takes the visual aspect and processes it in real time. I mean, she improvises with that too. So it's that's being spontaneous. She's feeding off of what you're doing in the movement, which is feeding off of what she's doing, which is feeding off the music.
Yeah.
So there's all these interrelationships going on visually. In terms of the movement that you're doing in that particular performance, the live music. And when you say that improvisation is very important to your process, how did you get to here, to where we are right now, let's say? Did you start off trained as a dancer in, let's say, more conventional techniques? Were you always interested in improvisation related to movement, or how did that develop, let's say?
Yeah, I moved to Chicago to study professionally. I grew up a soccer player, actually, and I played soccer for like 12 years of my life. So I was always really into the body and what the body was capable of. And I moved to Chicago because I knew I wanted to pursue movement and dance, but I knew that I needed training. And so I began my training within classical ballet, modern and contemporary dance. And it was very great to have that training. I feel like I've moved and shifted pretty far away from that world of dance. And throughout my training, very early on, even during my undergrad, I was always really interested in experimental performance. And I found Lynx Hall and Constellation, which changed my whole outlook about performance. And that's when I really started to become more involved in that realm, and, just met a lot of really amazing musicians and performance artists through Lynx and Constellation. And I was exposed to so much more through that. And I met Marie Casimir, who started Instigation Festival and kind of introduced me to this whole world of improvisation and experimental performance in Chicago. And yeah, it kind of just is pretty, like, the rest is history, I guess you could say, from there.
You use improvisation and movement since, and you often are working with other dancers and other people on stage. I mean, if I'm improvising with another musician and I, quote unquote, make a mistake, there's no bodily harm. It's just like, a mistake. How do you deal with making a choice in real time? And let's say someone goes left and you think they're going to go right or whatever. How do you navigate that kind of stuff? Because you have to really be like full present.
Yes.
You can't kind of like hesitate. You can't, you have to be in it. Otherwise it's not going to work. Right. So how do you deal with that aspect in performance? Because that is different than like with the music aspect.
Yeah, for sure. I think that, for me, when I am in these improvised settings, I'm always kind of having this conversation with myself and the other people that I'm collaborating with. The conversation that I'm having with myself is more of like, well, don't think about what your next move is, or just looking out for the things that bring me the most curiosity in that moment and moving closer to that, whether it be my hand or my whole body, or my face, or a sound that emerges from within me. So yeah, and I think the relationship between the music and the body and how that that specific relationship can be a number of different things, whether the body is going against the music, with the music, inside of the music. So I think there are definitely a number of things that it's like I'm thinking about things when I'm improvising, but I'm also trying to let go of stuff that's happening up here and just have a conversation with my body and the instrument, or my body and another person's body, or someone's limb, or, you know, if that makes sense.
So if you're tuned in, like you have like let's say a spatial awareness that's, let's say, intuitive, and by intuitive, I mean that at the highest level, like intuition is like very important to me in the way I work. So I don't think it's like, oh, you're just using intuition. It's like, no, that's like intellect. So you can train it. So are you using like a physical intuition of spatial relationships? So if someone does something and like kind of moves in a way, you're just responding to that in the moment because you've had years of training. You know how your body works. You know how to move in relation to things as they're happening in real time. Like I would work with sounds. You know, I have a background in that. So it's kind of like you're able to do it organically without being too self-conscious.
Yeah, I think that, excuse me. I think that I've gotten to a place where I'm able to get to that place more easily than I was maybe 3 years ago, than I was months ago, you know? So I think it's always expanding. And it definitely is a choice. Like, I think that, you know, you do have a choice in improvisation. You're making a specific choice, whether you're maybe aware of it or not in the moment. It's a choice that is feeding wherever the intuition is trying to take you. So yeah, I think that I have been able to expand in this practice in ways that really feed me and inspire me, and inspire my work, because I'm not like I don't choreograph. I guess I choreograph, but it starts out improvisation overall, and I'm very comfortable with improvisation. Not comfortable in the sense where I don't feel like I'm being challenged or pushed, but I guess I'm just able to really dive into that place. It does something to me. It brings me to a place that, you know, I can't really put into words, but it's so special. Yeah.
Yeah, it's part of your creative nature.
Yeah.
You know, some people are really improvisers in whatever field they work in, and some people need more, you know, rigid kind of parameters, and they work better that way. And it sounds like you're connected to the idea of this, you know, activity in the moment. It's part of how you approach things. Maybe we could take a look at one of the pieces you put together, and if you could introduce it a little bit to let us know like what the parameters were, if it's based in improvisation or something else in this first piece.
Definitely. This first piece is definitely improvisation. It is testing out this idea that I have about rest and a form of rest in the body, and the way that this new project about a whole plays into the idea of rest. And so, yeah, that's really all I have to say right now about it.
Great. We'll take a look at it, and then we can talk a little bit afterwards. Everybody, this is Jasmine Mendoza. You're listening to the Option program on Monday nights, care of Experimental Sound Studio, who run the quarantine concerts, which are happening almost every single day. So huge thanks to ESS for all they're doing for music and the arts right now in this period. This is Jasmine Mendoza. Does the piece have a title?
The piece does not have a title right now.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. And if you got any questions for Jasmine, please let us know in the chat, and we'll get to them as the show progresses. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, this is me unmuted. That was Jasmine Mendoza, and someday I'll figure out the technical aspect of doing these option live streams. Hey, that piece was very interesting because as I was watching it, your emotion is so slow that the trees catch your eye. You know, it kind of displays this other motion happening, and then the sound. And it's actually perfect because in reference to something I wanted to ask you about in the information you sent over regarding tonight's conversation and performances, there's a quote from you that says, "I am fascinated by imagery. It's where my movement exploration process begins. Imagine the human form transforming into an animal for 8 minutes at a speed of 1 millimeter per second. How does the body transform into an animal with a specific time parameter? Where must the movement be initiated from in order to honestly embody the animal at 1 millimeter per second? These are the kinds of things that drive my work." And in conjunction with what we just saw, this very slow motion of being on your side and then coming onto your back, it's hard to reference the change because it's slow, but obviously it's taking place over the time. Can you talk a little bit about the correlations there about like parameters of motion and time, why you're excited by that aspect?
Definitely. Yeah, I'm very fascinated by time and the way the body explores movement over time, and how maybe you can't really see something with the eye, but it's happening so deeply inside of the body that over the course of a very slow period of time, the body shifts um, into something maybe bigger, maybe much smaller. Um, I'm very interested in slowness and taking my time um, when I'm moving. Not saying that I'm not interested in, um, larger, more sporadic or rigid movements, but I think there's something very special about um, really understanding how the body can transform and understanding that time specifically, like the 1 millimeter per second idea comes from a teacher that I had. Her name is Victoria Hunt, and she teaches BodyWeather. And BodyWeather is a movement practice and idea that centers the mind and the body. And yeah, it's just very fascinating to me, the idea of, how the body can specifically transform from human to something more elemental or animalistic. But I think the thing that is most important to me is really taking my time. That way I'm actually being able to embody the feeling honestly, if that makes sense. Because it does take a lot of time to reach that point. So this video that you all just watched, is about rest, but it is also about that transition and how this piece that I'm presenting, this project about a hole that I will dig over a course of an entire day, is a durational performance piece. And there's going to need to be rest involved. And so this is kind of looking at what will that rest look like. I don't really know yet, actually. But this is exploring that. And, there's different layers of deep rest and the way the body shifts between deeper rest and in and out of a, lighter rest state. But yeah, if that, I kind of veered off there.
Can you talk a little bit about this performance durational piece you just mentioned in relationship to this long period of time, the activity that takes place? Can you describe it a little bit more in detail and why you're devoted to exploring this particular avenue?
Definitely. I've never worked in a durational performance kind of practice, really. So this is all very new to me. I'm really interested in what it takes to prepare the body for something like this. Yeah, so this project is about a hole that I will dig over the course of an entire day. And the digging is symbolic to many different things that have been inside of me for quite some time. I'm digging to find protection. I'm digging to find rest, explore rest in a deeper way because of the amount of labor and physicality that the body will be under, and what kind of elements the body will be under as well in that exploring that as well. I'm digging to disrupt and demolish the foundation that this earth was built upon, and how that continues to harm the lives of BIPOC folks. So that is kind of the ideas that I'm exploring right now through this work.
Okay.
I imagine this project to be both film and both a film and a live performance, but the film aspect seems much more important. And I'm actually in Texas right now at my mother's house, visiting family, but also exploring this project happening in her backyard. So while I'm here, I will be, just practicing the action of digging and, setting aside different times in the day for this day, I dig for 3 hours. Next week, I'm going to go a little bit longer. And just, continuing to practice that. And so this is all very new to me, especially this idea of durational performance work. It's always something that I've been very interested in. But there has to be a lot of preparation in the body. So
that sounds like a monumental experience as the performer, but also, from the standpoint of like being an audience, to go through this process, watching it, or on the actual movement side of it. That's a monumental task.
Thank you.
Yeah. I have a question from someone who's been watching the show, from Aleatori. Similar or related question, I guess, to something we were talking about earlier. I don't know much about movement, but can you talk about free improv with, say, musicians? How do you lead a musician to a new place if you have an idea? For example, a musician can force the issue by repeating a motive that they want to get traction with. What would you do in that?
That's interesting, because I feel like similarly, like the music can lead the body, and the same way. I feel like it depends on what you're actually doing. Like if I hear something, and I'm moving with the music, I can make a choice to move against that, but I can go back to it and start wiggling my body in a certain way that changes, or leads the musician into something else completely. So I think that it's like it goes back to the choice thing that we were talking about earlier. And I think that making that choice, and whether I'm moving underneath the music, with the music, inside of the music, on top of the music, there are different choices that can be made within that. And I think both musician and dancer can lead each other into different areas of curiosity. And they really just go kind of mesh so easily together sometimes, and sometimes not. Sometimes it doesn't feel good, and you do things to kind of cleanse that away or something in the body to switch that completely. And that switch could lead the musician could either see what you're doing, and either make the choice to stay in that place, or you're leading them into a different direction.
When you work with music in an improvisational way, where the musician's improvising, you're improvising, is there an aspect to the music that you tend to focus on more? For example, are you kind of feeding off the rhythmic phrasing of the musician, or is it connected to, like, okay, if they're dealing with like higher pitch sounds, like it changes the way you respond physically to that, or is it like just a big picture of all the things together?
I think it is more of a big picture. I find myself going very in and out of, you know, being affected by if someone was playing a high pitched sound, does that make my body jolt in a way that's different from, I think it's more of like a bigger picture. I'm really interested um, in all of the different ways that improvisation affects the body. And there's no really like structure for me with that. When you're in it, it's like it can be anything. So I think that it's affecting my body, my voice, my facial expressions, all in the moment. There's no structure for me. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, like immediate call and response. Just
Definitely.
going through the impressions.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at the next piece. Maybe if you could do this a similar thing, maybe mention a kind of a reference point to consider before we take a look at it. That was helpful for me anyway, looking at the first one.
Yeah, this next one is exploring digging and my body as a shovel. And so exploring my limbs as shovels, and just kind of exploring the actual digging. Yeah.
Is this a preliminary kind of study to this larger project, the durational project you're talking about, or is it not connected?
Definitely, yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay,
Very
great.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, Alex, please cue this up. Everybody who's watching, this is Jasmine Mendoza. Thank you very much for being here. And we'll be talking to her for the next half hour or so. So please send questions if you've got them. And thank you very much, Alex, for your help tonight, as always.
Yes. Thank you, Alex.
Yeah, I'm really struck by the contrast to the first piece, where the movement is slowed down so much, and the other one's so active. The distant shot,
Yeah.
and the more medium shot, closer shot. The use of the camera is absolutely fascinating. Like very specific, really, really smart. Did you make the decisions about the camera setup?
Yeah, I'm very interested in the perspectives and the conversation between the camera and the body, and how thinking of the camera as another person, or as like not a camera, maybe like a bug or something, like and also the relationship between I was also thinking about the perspectives of maybe the camera being after the hole has been dug. What if the camera is inside of the hole and I'm above it? So it's playing with those perspectives is really important to me with this work.
Yeah, to use it more than like a static observational tool of like you performing in a space, and just it's actually part of the performance.
Yes,
it's part of the construction of the. That's you can tell. It was evident just from the two pieces how differently they were organized, and so it's fantastic. And the thing I was struck by too, this whole conversation, or a lot of the conversations, have been about the interaction between your movement and music. Mm-hmm. And these have been ambient sound. There hasn't been any music in the performances or alongside the performances. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because obviously do you normally work with musicians and with music, or are you frequently doing stuff with ambient sound?
I think it's a bit of both. I'm working with live music and musicians a lot, more so than I am working with ambient sound. Mm-hmm. But I am interested in, a lot of my practice involves nature and the connection between the body and nature and the imagery of nature, and how that plays into, my improvisation practice on my own. And so I am interested in this ambient sound in this project specifically, with the way that, with the digging, specifically, and what kind of sounds will come out of that, what kind of sounds will emerge from the body when the body is under a lot of physical distress, maybe from the digging, and the use of breath, and what comes out from the body when the body is very physically exhausted. And what sounds are coming out, and how the elements play into the way the body is being affected by this work, the digging, the resting, the collapsing, which we will see soon. That answers the question.
Yeah, I have to say, like, imagining the scenario that you're describing, and as much as I obviously love music, the idea of having the ambient sound of that process being the audio for the visual, I can't see what would be stronger than that, really, because this is just my subjective opinion, obviously, but it's like if you have the music in there, then you have this potential problem where the music is indicating. It's like what I don't like about a lot of Hollywood cinema and the way they use music. The music's telling you how to feel. Like, I don't need to be told. Like, I'd like to have some choice in the matter, And so it's like, even if the music's fantastic, depending on, because it is subjective, it's an abstract kind of expression, a kind of communication. It's the potential is there to create an interpretation that is maybe far afield from what you're trying to accomplish with the piece. And like the materials are the sound, the materials are the movement, the way that you use the camera as part. That's super rich. I think that idea is super, super powerful, super great.
Thank you. I have, I think there are some ideas that I have with sound inside of the whole. Like these are, they're not very much fleshed out inside of me yet, but I am beginning to use my voice a lot more within performing. And maybe they're not specifically words, but sounds that emerge. So I'm interested in what that could sound like inside of the whole, and that playing into the, soundtrack of the performance and the piece in general. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the idea that all the components are generated by the activity.
Yes.
Audio, visual, every part is coming from that the work of it, and
Yes.
and that's strong. Yeah. Okay, here's a question from somebody else for a change.
Okay.
Timothy Mark, 1976, who I'm pretty sure is Tim Daisy, asks, when did you first discover the art of Butoh, and in what ways does Butoh inform your own ideas about movement?
Wow, Butoh. I first discovered Butoh through a very special group of people in Chicago. Sarah Zalick, and just many other experimental performance artists. It must have been about 4 or 5 years ago. And this practice is so rich for so many reasons. And it has really kind of changed the way that I think about movement in a lot of different ways. Imagery is a huge part of Butoh. It's a huge part of what drives the improvisation, the way you're moving your body, the way you're thinking about what you're going to do next, or the way you're thinking about letting go completely. And Butoh can be so many different things. I mean, you can transform into a bug, you can be an alien, there's so many different things that you can explore inside of Butoh. And I think the one thing that has really stuck with me through this practice is that I'm able to transform beyond my human form. And that's something that has really interested me and fascinated me about this practice, is that I'm not just like skin and flesh. I'm more than that when I'm practicing this practice, or when I'm improvising on my own. It's a very, very rich practice, very curious practice, which is something that has always struck me. Being an improvisation nerd, I feel like Butoh is just another form of improvising. And there are so many layers within that practice. Like I said, it goes beyond your human form. And I think that's what's so fascinating about the practice specifically. Yeah.
Okay. There's another question. This is from Steve Marquette. Sorry, Steve. I thought it was Stephen. Also related to outside or different kinds of influences. Are there any filmmakers or photographers that have informed your approach to movement, and perhaps the relationship between the body and the camera?
Yes, Kyoto Aoki, who is also Chicago-based, and we have been collaborating on a project for maybe like a year or two now. But her process with the camera is, it's just so moving to me. I think that she really thinks about the relationship between the body and the camera, and how the camera isn't the camera. It is something else. It's either another body, or a fly on the wall, or also Maya Deren, who is a older filmmaker who, you know, has a very big like dance for camera practice. But those two come to mind right now.
And any photographers or primarily filmmakers?
Primarily filmmakers at the moment, yeah, that are coming to mind.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the development of a piece.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you talk a lot about improvisation being central to your practice. Maybe we could reference, since we, you know, people here, and myself included, that just saw the sort of the shoveling piece,
Mm-hmm.
shovel. In developing that piece from maybe just even the idea of it, you know, just the thought, or how you conceptualize it, how you rehearse it, how you develop elements and components for it. Can you just talk about how that came together and how you made it?
Definitely. Yeah, I think that, you know, this is always changing for me, my process and how I'm building things. But you know, I'm starting from a place of improvisation. So I'm really just testing a lot of different things and ideas. And it's kind of like this one big test almost. You know, many different many different things come to mind, or maybe it's a specific movement or something that I read, like a phrase that has stuck with me that has now been you know, is embodied in a different way, whether it's through, you know, sound or the way my hand is moving. But yeah, I'm really testing a lot of different things. And then I get to a place where those tests become, you know, different patterns or drawings that are more of a structure. So it starts with drawings or different movements that kind of flow into something else, maybe completely, and maybe it's something different far away from the work, and then I'm trying to bring it back to the work, or maybe it's, you know, something else that is shifting the work. But I definitely, yeah, I draw a lot, and that is something that really helps me to link movement together with a sense of structure, or the choreography, for instance. Like my choreography or structure is like drawing, and how I'm able to draw specific things and look back at these drawings and reference how they're playing into the actual movement or the overall vision.
Are the drawings of the human body, or are they references of like let's say a graphic score where you're interpreting the imagery in a movement way following that, or are they more specific to like, this is the kind of thing I want to see in my body as I go through this particular piece?
The drawings, yeah, they're kind of a range of all of that, actually.
Oh.
Maybe it is a drawing about the specific quality of the movement, or a drawing of how the body is changing over a course of time. So it's kind of like these little, almost, yeah, like snapshots of the different times of each section of the piece. So yeah, I guess, yeah, I mean, I think I'm starting to work in this more like photographic way, per se, or thinking about my process as like these snapshots of different, and how I'm thinking about this shovel piece specifically, like almost like these smaller vignettes, kind of resemble the drawings, and how I, you know, brought that to come together.
So that's really interesting how they could be, yeah, like a graphic or a specific, but it's all a reference for you. It's like if someone looked at the drawings, like you get them as like let's say, a guide to the piece, like reference points that are specific for you. And if another person looked at them, the references maybe wouldn't be as clear. Could you hand those over to somebody else, like you're choreographing a piece for another person? This is the reference. Would they understand it directly, or you'd have to kind of break it down and explain, well, this is what I'm getting at here?
Yeah, I think I probably have to break it down a little bit, because I think some of the drawings will include some sort of text. Maybe it's like, it might say something like, at this point, the body is transforming from human to shark, or something, let's say. So maybe we don't know what that means, or maybe it's just a picture of that happening. So I think having to break it down would definitely be necessary. But I really feel like the drawings help me come back to a specific place. I think with improvisation is amazing for so many reasons. But there are some times when you are building a project or a piece, you can get a little bit lost in this improvisation world. So the drawings bring me back to a sense of structure. And yeah, so it just really brings me back to this sense of structure. And I'm able to build from there, build off of the drawings. Yeah.
It'd be fascinating to see when things, let's say, return to some kind of normal where performances in a conventional sense are possible again. It'd be amazing to see some of your performances in the space where the drawings were exhibited too.
Yes, I've been really thinking about that, actually.
That would be incredible. That would be, and with nothing else, you know what I mean? Like, you don't have to, like, just as you see them and that's it. You don't, and just have that presence would be super, I think, fascinating. I would find it fascinating.
Thank you, Ken.
Well, it shows I really like to end with the work, whether it's music or in this case, one of your pieces of movement, and let that be kind of the summation or the final statement. Is that okay with you? We look at this third piece and we, everybody who's been here, Jasmine Mendoza, thank you so much. It's been super illuminating. I love hearing how people work, how their practice evolves, and I really look forward to getting to see you perform in person again, hopefully very soon. These new pieces have been fascinating, and we have one more to watch. Before I sign off with Jasmine, I'd like to thank Experimental Sound Studio for all they're doing with the quarantine concerts. My co-curators, Tim Daisy and Andrew Klinkman, who helped me with Option. Alex Inglesian, who does so much of the work on these shows at ESS and the online work. Also encourage you to donate if you can. Tonight, all the money will be going to Jasmine, and a lot of the people in the art world, especially people in the performing arts, are having a hard time with work right now. So the funds are really appreciated. I can speak specifically to that. I know it means a lot on a lot of different levels. So if you can donate, please do. Thanks for listening. Thanks so much, Jasmine, for being here. It's been absolutely fantastic, and the new pieces are super exciting to see. And what's this third one that we're going to look at?
This one is collapsing. It's about the body collapsing into the hole, beside the hole, and it plays a lot into the breathing, the heavy breathing, kind of the soundtrack, the ambient soundtrack of the work. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, Jasmine, thanks again. Have a good time down in Texas, and I look forward to seeing you in Chicago in the near future. And take care and keep up the amazing, inspiring work. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ken.
See you soon. Okay.
You
ciao.
too.
I miss you too.